Welcome to Empowered by Iron, the podcast for female strength athletes by female strength athletes. We are your hosts, Dr. Kristen Lander from Fiercely Fueled Nutrition Coaching and Dr. Mary Morton, scientist and weightlifter. Together, we are empowered by iron.
Welcome to this week's episode of Empowered by Iron. First things first, I would like to be the first to introduce to you the new Dr. Mary Morton.
Insert applause.
Congratulations.
Oh, thanks. Technically, I'm not completely done yet. I did my oral defense, and I just have to finish up edits on my written dissertation. And then, once that is done, officially, I can be a doctor. PhD.
Whatever.
Yeah.
You're a doctor in my mind.
Thanks, Kristen.
You guys, I watched Mary's defense of her dissertation or her presentation. She is smart. Like, I knew this girl was smart, but she's a smarty pants.
I like to keep that part of my life separate. I'd rather the world think I'm an idiot.
Hey, it's sometimes easier that way.
For sure.
So first, I want to talk about a question that we got from a listener. She is, I think, a newer lifter and is worried about building calluses on her hands and having them get really scratchy and getting caught on her clothes and things like that. And the way she posted the question was really cute. She said she knows it's socially unacceptable to wear gloves at the gym, but she doesn't know what should she do with it. She's scared of getting calluses. So I had a little conversation with her about it, but I thought it would be good to talk about because she can't be the only one. I grew up as a gymnast, so I think I've had calluses on my hands since I was 5. So, but I was telling her, like, if you take good care of your hands, then it shouldn't be a problem. So I wanted to talk to our listeners today a little bit about how to take care of your hands. So, obviously calluses are helpful. The formation of calluses are helpful in keeping a grip on the bar. And you can't wear gloves in any sort of competition. So if you want to compete, you better build those calluses up so you don't drop a barbell for unnecessary reasons.
Or rip your hand.
Or rip your hand, which is the other really big thing too. That's the one that a lot of us worry about. But so if you're using chalk dries out your hands and it's going to make calluses potentially more susceptible to ripping. So wash your hands after you train, wash the chalk off. And if you want to, you can put some lotion on them, or at least just make sure that you wash that off so it's not just sitting there absorbing moisture for an unnecessary amount of time. And then the biggest thing for me is using a callus file. Do you use a file on your hands, Mary?
Nope.
How do you? Okay.
I just kind of let them be, so I'm useless in this conversation. I don't wash after.
So as a gymnast, I ripped a lot until I learned how to take care of my calluses. And then at all my years in CrossFit and Olympic weightlifting and powerlifting, I have ripped once in 10 years. And that was because I got really lazy with taking care of my calluses. And so the best thing to do is to get a callus file from the store, from like Walgreens or CVS, wherever.
Probably the internet.
Or the internet. Amazon has them too. Where one side is metal. It's like a metal file. And the other side is more sandpapery. And so use that whenever your hands feel rough. Like, I don't think that I have regular intervals that I use that at, but definitely if my hands start feeling rough, and if the calluses get so thick you can pinch them and make with your fingernails and make shapes, that's bad. We don't want that. So get rid of that.
That's what my hands look like.
You can make shapes with your calluses, like you can pinch them between your fingernails and make shapes.
Oh, hell yeah. When I was a kid, I was so proud of this trick. I had so many calluses on my hands that I could take a paperclip or a safety pin and stick it through my callus
Yeah.
and put it in there, and it freaked my classmates out, and I was so proud of that. Like, I would leave it in the entire day, and I'd be like, look at what I can do, and everyone's like, oh, that's disgusting, and I'm like, I'm basically God.
I, I actually used to do that too, but I don't think I left it in all day. But so I had calloused hands because I was a gymnast. But why did you have calloused hands?
I played every sport under the sun. I was
Okay.
a gymnast for a while. I was a basketball player, volleyball player. I played with my hands. I don't know.
Raised goats.
I had goats. Goats don't require calluses.
Okay, so yeah, so you want to file those puppies down with the metal side of the file, so that they're smooth, and then just smooth them out with the sandpapery side, whenever they feel rough. I have a file in my gym bag. I have a file in my nightstand, and I think I have a file somewhere else. So I always keep it, because if I get lazy and I go to the gym and I'm feeling like, ooh, this callus feels really rough, like if I can like pull it up a little bit, then I know that that's probably going to rip off if I do a heavy deadlift. So file it down at the gym before you lift if you have to.
Easy peasy.
That's really it. Yeah.
Or
Yeah, that's really it.
do what I do and just say, fuck it and whatever. I have not.
And
I will say that I've only had my hand rip once.
okay. And
That's
you do
it.
nothing.
Literally
You do
nothing.
And they're not scratchy, and they don't like catch on stuff.
No, maybe I just have really oily, sweaty hands. That's attractive. I don't get
Well,
callous.
so I have heard.
Sweaty.
Okay, so I have heard people say in the past, if you use an excessive amount of chalk, that will actually can cause you to rip. And I know that you don't use a ton of chalk. I use a ton of chalk. I chalk up every time I make an attempt on the barbell, like in weightlifting but I think that's bullshit, because I definitely use chalk. Like, chalk is my friend. I have really sweaty hands, and I don't rip. So that's,
but you take care of your calluses. If you didn't take care of your calluses, do you think you would rip more with the excessive?
If I didn't file them down, I don't know if it's the excessive chalk
I'm gonna blame it on that.
What. But if I didn't file them down, I would rip a lot. But I file them down, and they're fine. So anyway, so ditch the gloves, take care of your hands, you'll be good. Hey, listeners, if you guys have any questions like that, shoot us a message and we will talk about it on the episode, because surely other people have those types of questions.
Absolutely. There is no shame in any question that you have. I'm sure we've all had those questions where, like, does anyone else feel this way? And then someone asks it and you're like, oh, yeah, hell yeah. Oh, hell yeah. I'm not alone.
Yeah. So what's the main thing we're talking about today?
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm so excited. And it gets me very angry when I talk about it. So beware, listener. We're going to talk about dieting and cutting.
Which we did just talk a little bit about on the last episode, but this is different.
Yeah, this is not how to cut. This is the mental side of cutting. We advocate for no cutting for the most part. If you're a strength athlete, we believe that you should lift where you're at as long as you are healthy and your weight isn't affecting your health or isn't causing you pain or anything. So we are big advocates for just lifting where you're at. And I stand by that, completely stand by that. However, we are also human. There is a time in our lives, like for me, before I was introduced into strength training, where chronic dieting and cutting and yo-yo dieting was a big part of my life. And I think this is very pertinent to talk about nowadays, especially as females and especially as strength athletes, is we get bombarded on the daily on social media with these miraculous transformations. I mean, 1 month, look at this. She lost 75 pounds and makes you feel like a worthless turd, right? You're like, God damn it. Why don't I look like an athlete? Why do I look like myself? It could send you on this very negative spiral. But when you actually look into what they're eating, they're not doing things insanely healthily. And in fact, I would argue it's not great on their mental health, but that's a completely different podcast. We want to talk about dieting, do a little science of what long-term dieting looks like, what are signs that you may have dieted too long. We also want to talk a little bit about the mental aspect of coming out of a chronic diet. I'm
Yeah.
sure that Kristen can attest to this with some of her clients she's worked with over the 10 years you've been doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And me personally, there comes a point in which you are dieting and that you can't cut anymore. You simply can't take away any more calories. And even if you did, you're at a point where you don't lose weight. It's like this weird spot where you're so low, your body's like, hell no, you don't lose weight anymore. And that's really bad. So we wanted to talk
Yeah.
about this today.
Yeah, I have definitely had a lot recently, I guess, because people just keep referring people to me for this kind of thing. But I have been working with a lot of athletes who have been yo-yo dieting for years. Their metabolisms are totally messed up. They come to me after failed cuts. And they're like, please help. I need to cut to such and such a weight for such and such a meet, and I can't lose any more weight. I'm trying and it's not working. And when I sit and evaluate things, I'm like, well, let's talk about how much food you were eating and all this. And it has happened several times where someone will come to me and they are barely eating at their basal metabolic rate, which is the minimum number of calories that we need to survive on. And they're trying to train and perform this way. And it's absolutely terrifying to me as a nutrition specialist to go, oh my gosh, I can't restrict your calories anymore. In good faith, you're going to die. Like you're barely eating at your basal metabolic rate. Like literally we cannot restrict your calories anymore. And this is happening so frequently that Mary and I talk about this stuff a lot during training and we get really fired up.
Well, I think the worst part about it is it's become a social norm. Like, if you can't follow this super restrictive diet as an athlete or as a human being who lives and breathes and stuff, if you can't follow this particular diet, you are the failure. It's not that you were set up for failure. It's not that companies are prying on your senses, preying on your senses. Sorry, not prying. That was dumb. Preying on your senses to show you these transformations, say this could be you. No, it's your fault and you need to get back on the bandwagon and you need to stick to that 1100 calorie diet. There was a time in my life when I was a high school athlete. So mind you, I was competing in something, whether it was soccer, volleyball, or basketball or something. I would run 6 miles in the morning, every morning. I would eat 900 calories the whole day. And then at the end of the day, I would have practice. So I would be running around, 2 hours there, and I wouldn't eat dinner. Like there was no dinner afterwards. And I got to the point that I could not lose. It worked for a while, right? It worked beautifully for a while. And then it got to the point that I couldn't lose more weight. And when I'd have those days or those couple days where I would eat more than 900 calories, I would gain weight that I then couldn't lose.
Right. Because you were eating chronically at such a low caloric intake that your metabolism. So whenever we diet, our metabolism downregulates as we lose weight because our total daily energy expenditure, our basal metabolic rate decreases as our body weight decreases. This is a normal thing that occurs with dieting. It's for the exact same reason that someone who's 55 kilos needs to eat less calories than someone who's 100 kilos.
Mm-hmm.
The exact same reason. Their basal metabolic rate is lower. So when you're eating at such a low amount and then chronically and then eat a little bit extra food, there's actually research that shows that if you have these like episodic periods where you go and eat just a little bit, eat a little bit more or binge or whatever, that you the amount of weight that you put on is disproportionately higher amount of fat than someone who wasn't doing that.
Mm-hmm. And if we want to take that in terms of bro science, basically your body becomes so efficient when you cut those calories down because it needs every calorie you're intaking when you're starving it. And then when you overeat on those days, it it freaks out and says, whoa, I need to store this, and takes all that and stores it as fat. So that way, when you're starving it again, it has some sort of resource to go to. It's not in full starvation.
Right. There is actually some valid research behind that bro science. So I think it got started somewhere. I think it just got way overplayed. But yeah, I mean, that's essentially what happens. It truly does get stored as fat because your body's going, well, I don't know when I'm going to get another meal like this again.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have that horrible cycle starting of restricting and binging or yo-yo dieting, whatever you want to call it, that is really wreaks havoc on your metabolism.
And I don't know if you listening, if this has ever happened to you, but I remember when I was severely restricting, I was fine for, I don't know, almost a year in terms of restricting. I didn't go over, I didn't binge, like I was totally fine. And then I had 1 week, how dare I, that I went on a class trip, and that week I didn't really care about what I ate. I mean, I cared. It really bothered me, but I had to eat more. And ever since that trip, it began my binge restrict cycle because I fed my body and my body was like, whoa, this is fantastic. We need more.
This is really common too when people decide that they're going to lose weight for vacation because they're going to be in a swimsuit and they want to look good and they're going to be
they starve themselves.
Well, even if they do like a moderate weight loss, but then you can't go from a cut immediately into eating a bunch of food for a week on vacation and think that that's not going to have some sort of impact on your metabolism, especially if it's been a long cut. It can be really problematic. Some people's metabolism can handle it. A lot of people's can't. And then
especially if you've been that chronic dieter.
Yes, exactly. If you have yo-yo dieted a lot throughout your life, then this is going to be really problematic for you. So you want to get to a place of maintenance before you go on that vacation. So lose your weight, then get to maintenance, then go on vacation, and then you can eat food and your metabolic needs are higher. So you can burn off all those margaritas and tacos.
Not many nutrition coaches are as sane as you in terms of this. I'm sure that there's quite a few out there, but they're the quieter voices of the industry. It's the ones that are big and everyone, I don't want to say all of them, but a lot of the ones that people know of, that they advocate these hard cuts. And you're like, oh, look at how great this person is. And then coming out of that is where the big issues start. So let's move into from chronic dieting. So you've been a chronic dieter, hypothetically, let's say you've yo-yoed for years, or you've been in a severe caloric deficit for a very long time and you just can't seem to lose weight, blah, blah, blah. So you've made the decision now that, okay, something has to change. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. So you seek the help of, let's say, someone like Kristen. The first thing Kristen's going to do, and correct me if I'm wrong, is she's going to look at your calories and your body weight and your body fat percentage and go, oh my God, how are you alive? She's going to have an internal crisis for you.
Yeah.
And then the first thing that she does, which this is why I endorse Kristen. She's not just my friend and my business partner, but this is why I endorse her as a coach, is the first thing she looks at is this healthy for you? And that's the first thing a coach should look at. They should look at whatever you're eating and be like, okay, so this is bad. There's no reason for you to be in this cut. There's no reason for you to do this long term. I can't in good faith tell you that I can help you cut, at least initially, because of, all the health problems.
Right. So, that's the hardest thing actually, when people hire me to reach their goals, right? They want me to help them reach their goals. And I am all for that. That is the hardest thing when a client comes to me with a certain goal in mind, and I look at where they've been and where they want to go, and I go, we can't do this. That is so hard to do. But I refuse to take someone who's in a severe deficit and put them in a further deficit. So, and it doesn't happen all the time, but it certainly happens, and usually it ends up working out really well. Like we prepare their metabolism, and then we can move into a cut, and then they're able to really easily lose weight as opposed to having been struggling for years. But that's a hard thing to be like, oh, so I know you hired me to do this, but
Well, yeah, and you're saying something to a potential client that could get you to lose that potential client,
yeah.
which I understand. So then once you've convinced them, because it does take a little convincing, that the first thing you want to do is not cut, then comes the hard part as the client. So then you're at this place that you didn't expect to be. So now you have a coach who's like, we're not going to cut you. We're going to try to reverse you. We're trying to get you back up to where you were. And in
Or
your
where they
mind,
should be. Maybe
yeah.
they've never even eaten the number of calories that they're supposed to be eating. Like
Oh,
that
yeah.
certainly happens. They're like, oh my gosh, that's like 1,000 more calories than I've ever eaten in my life. I'm like, what?
How do you live? So
Yeah.
so then they start on this journey, and I think a lot of the times reverse dieting online is sold as like this magical cure-all thing where once you start doing it and you're reversing, oh my god, you're going to lose weight and it's going to be great. You're not going to gain any weight. It's going to be fantastic. When in reality, you're probably going to gain weight. You're
Mhm.
probably going to it's going to be super difficult on your mental state, and it's not going to be easy.
Well, it's mentally challenging to take someone who most of the times people want to lose. Sometime, I mean, obviously, right, I work with a wide range of people. So obviously, a lot of people come to me and they want to lose weight um, to get into a certain weight class to qualify for something. Or whatever, for whatever reason. But there's also that mental aspect of a lot of, like, let's be real, a lot of times, a lot of us are wanting to lose weight for also the aesthetic reasons, right? And so it's really difficult to take someone who has not been eating enough food, try to give them enough food, and then see the scale go up a little bit. Like we don't see huge gains in the scale, but
Mm-mm.
we see it go, you will see it move in the wrong direction a little bit. And I think that is so mentally challenging to be like, wait a minute, I'm unhappy with where I am and now I'm gaining weight. And I think that is so scary and so hard for people to deal with because it's the opposite of what your end goal is.
Mm-hmm. I
But you
recognize
can't get there until you get healthy.
exactly. Just like when I was, I mean, not what, 3 years ago, something like that, when I finally realized that, oh, I indeed had a big problem and I needed to fix it, I didn't go about it very methodically because I don't know how to go about it methodically. So, what I decided to let myself do for 6 months to a year was eat. Eat what I wanted, when I wanted, whenever I wanted. There was no more limitations on the amount of food, the type of food, whatever I could eat. So in that period, I gained quite a bit of weight, which in hindsight, if I had done it better and tried to reverse, which I did hire a coach or two to get me to reverse, but I just could not count calories. It caused me to go into the mental state of I'm restricting again, blah, blah, blah. So I had that same thing and it was difficult. Like I knew I was eating more than what I've ever eaten. I knew I was going to gain weight. And when I step on the scale, it was just like, oh my God, where am I? I cannot believe I'm letting myself do this. This is horrible. And so eventually I had to just not step on the scale, right? But then after 6 months to 8 months or a year, whatever I did, kind of came and went, my weight tapered, my metabolism was back to where whatever good was. I was eating a good amount of food. And then I could finally start looking at what I was eating and kind of change things. But you have to go through that period of rebuild. It's
Yeah,
unavoidable.
for sure. And here's the thing is that a reverse diet isn't always the answer. Like
No.
sometimes Sometimes we'll put someone into a reverse and they just consistently gain and gain and gain. And then if they accidentally go over their macros one day, then it's like major weight gain. And so sometimes we have to just take that person and throw them straight into maintenance macros, which is really terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
And usually that will work, but everyone's body responds differently, so it's hard. And there's no, as much as people want to say like, oh well, if X, Y, and Z happens, then this is the solution, and that there's always like some standard protocol for things, and there's not. Everyone's body responds differently, and it's, you've got to figure out, how is my body responding to this and how can I change it? And that's really hard to be that objective with yourself.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I think. Especially
that's why, and especially what?
That's why, I mean, that is especially scary too, when you're like, what's happening to me?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why I just jumped in. I mean, I didn't bring myself up to maintenance, whatever that was. I just went on ahead and started eating like my binge brain wanted to eat. And that eventually let me kind of taper off and figure it out. But yeah, it's not easy. It is not sunshine and rainbows. It is not going to cure your problems. It's not easy. Some people have a great time. I will say there are those few people who they reverse and it's magic. And then you have the people that reverse and they gain weight and they don't feel good. But then they get themselves back to a healthy state. They restore their metabolism. They're feeling better. They can train better. And then once you're there, wherever that there is for you, that's when you can reassess your situation and say, okay, here's where I'm at. Do I really want to go down to that weight class? What is it going to take? Am I going to be more competitive there? Or is the strength gains I've made in this other weight class going to keep me competitive? There's a lot of things to keep in mind, but you can't go anywhere. You can't cut. You can't diet. You can't change until you fix what's broken.
Right. Yep. Definitely. It's very true. And I wish that the internet was full of these sorts of transformations instead of us seeing all of these like aesthetic transformation photos. I'm gonna try not to climb up on my soapbox here, but I I get really mad when I see those photos, because if it's a company that's putting up photos of their athletes and they're saying, oh, look at what this person did in this time frame or whatever, isn't the main goal performance? And so why are we putting up aesthetic transformations when the main objective of whatever they were doing was performance? I mean, maybe it was to cut a weight class, but still, like, how was their performance when they cut a weight class? Did they still perform well? Did they set PRs? Did they do what they set out to do? That is harder to find.
That's not the conversation. Yeah.
Well, and that's not how you get clients, right? You get clients by showing someone that didn't have abs suddenly has abs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because abs always mean athletic, right?
Right. Which is why I said many, many podcasts episodes ago, I said that looking like an athlete is a byproduct of being an athlete. Like I want to look like an athlete. What does that mean? It
doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, right? Like athletes look like a wide range of people.
There are different colors, different shapes, different sizes, different skill levels, and they're all athletes first.
Right.
And then, that's the body of an athlete because they're an athlete.
Exactly.
It's so dumb. It's so dumb. And then what really makes me angry is that you've got these companies that prey on transformations, which I get. It gets you business. It gets your company more successful. That's fine. But then they don't deal with the repercussions of that, which is so many people women especially, who end up in these horrible mentally and health related states because of what they went through, and because what they were doing is looked at as the social norm. Like, it's okay to only eat 1,000 calories a day. It's fine. That's what all athletes do. That's bullshit. And you've ruined this person for a good year or whatever it takes for them to get back up to where they were. This is why researching your coach and really understanding what it means to be an athlete of that coach is so important. You need to understand what is the first priority of your coach. Is it to make money, or is it to help you? And if the first priority of your coach is to sell you a program, then you need a new coach. If you reach out to a coach and they will talk with you about what they think is best for you even before you purchase anything, that's the coach you want.
Yep. I agree. Yeah. And you talked about some of the health issues that come up, or you mentioned that health issues come up. And so that reminded me that I wanted to talk about signs that can appear that let you know that you need to stop being in a caloric deficit.
Number one.
Yeah, this is super important. Like, write this down if you are planning on being in a caloric deficit, or if you are in a caloric deficit, because these are the things that I see people say, oh, you just have to push through this and just keep going. And no, this is a sign that your body's saying enough for now. And when I say enough for now, I really mean for now. You can go back, you can reverse, go to maintenance for a while, and then go back into a cut. But you're going to set yourself up for failure if you push through these things. And these things are, if you are constantly hungry and you're fighting the urge to overeat all the time. If you are going between, or now say you've moved past that and now you're going into just binging and then restricting and binging and restricting, and you're basically not making any progress in your cut. If you are a woman and you've lost your menstrual cycle,
big one,
stop your cut. And I know so many people say, oh, well, it'll come back once you go into maintenance. It might not. If you stay in your cut too long, if you let that go too long, it might not.
Yeah, go back and listen to our episode all about menstrual cycles and all that good stuff. I'll link it below for everyone.
Yeah. And basically, if you're not continuing to lose weight in your deficit and you're having to drop your calories lower and lower, and that's making you feel this constant hunger and you're hangry all the time, and then you restrict, like that's when you know, okay, it's time to pull the plug on this and move over into maintenance or reverse, whatever. But those are the signs that you have to watch out for. Now, sometimes that'll happen when we've got an athlete cutting for a meet, right? And they've got some of these things appear 2 weeks before a meet. And it's like, well, I'm not going to tell you can't make weight for worlds, but it's, so sometimes you have to kind of weigh that out. But if you're just cutting just to cut and these things pop up, just stop, because it's going to make any future cut so much harder if you push through these.
And also, I will add to that list, although it's not scientifically proven, just Mary proven, that
Mary Science.
When I was in that severe deficit, I lost the desire to do like everything. I remember having the drive to do all kinds of things when I was younger. And I get younger, but I was in my 20s and I was like, I could do this. I can do this. I'm so excited. Everything's great. And then when I was in that deficit for so long, and then the binging and restricting, I just remember laying on the couch for days, just being like, why am I even doing this? What? Not the dieting, just like whatever I was doing in life. Like, what are my goals? Why does it matter? I had no drive to do anything. And I think a lot of that had to do with the chronic, because that's the only thing that I can think of that would contribute that.
Some of that is actually scientifically proven, Mary.
I'm sure it is, but I didn't look it up.
some of that is the down regulation of your metabolism. When your metabolism slows down, it's basically your body is going into this preservation mode, right? It's saying like, okay, I'm going to burn off this fat because I need to use the fat for fuel because I don't have enough energy coming in. And then your activity level decreases naturally. This is why people get fatigued on a cut, because their metabolism, their body's trying to spare energy wherever it can. And so you're naturally going to be more tired. You're going to be fatigued. You're going to want to lay around on the couch as opposed to go walk the dog. You're just not going to want to do a lot of things. And then I think that breeds some depression,
Mm-hmm.
and there's definitely going to be a neurotransmitter link in there that I think furthers some depression issues when you're in a deep caloric deficit.
Doesn't being in a deep caloric deficit mess with your cortisol levels? And cortisol levels are linked to your dopamine levels in your brain. Don't quote me
Yeah,
on that. Let me look that up.
there's a whole cascade of things that are affected by being in a caloric deficit that
Dopamine is one of those ones. It's a feel good hormone. It's your feel good thing transmitter in your brain. And that, if that's low in your brain, you don't feel good.
right.
Life is just kind of all shades of gray and sad.
So sad.
So sad. So, how does this apply to you? If you are in a deep cut and you're recognizing, we just listed 3 to 4 things, and you're like, holy crap, 3 out of 4 of those, or all of those completely describe me, you might want to rethink the cut.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean like you've not done anything wrong by doing
No,
this. Right?
no,
It's
absolutely
you're not a
not.
bad person by having this happen to you. It's just a sign like, oh, maybe I need to take a step back and end this cut for now,
Mm-hmm.
and then I can cut again in the future if I feel like I need to.
Mm-hmm. I think that that's the biggest thing is, yes, you are the one that eats the food. Yes, you are the one that makes the decision. But because cutting severely and these transformations are so socially normalized, it's not really your fault. You think that this is the normal. I thought it was the normal. I thought there was something wrong with me, that I couldn't follow this horribly restrictive diet that I was on. I thought it was my fault, when really the diet's fucking stupid.
Yeah,
So, like, this
yeah.
isn't your fault. Now, if you
Any
hear this information and you don't do anything with it, that's a whole nother thing. Definitely take your health into consideration first when you're looking at all of these factors.
right, and also too because as athletes, right? We are athletes, and it's not just about what the scale says.
Mm-mm.
It's if your main goal as an athlete is to keep improving, and your nutrition is going to be off in such a way that you can't keep improving. Like, what is the point? What are we
What
doing
is the
here?
point? Yeah, if you can't keep adding strength and you're a strength sport athlete, not good. No bueno. Take a step back. That's not good.
And I would argue, even sometimes people will think that they are eating at maintenance because their weight is maintained, but their strength has plateaued, and
Yes.
they're doing all of the other things that they know that they need to do and prioritizing their recovery. And they've got a good training program, and everything set up so that they can improve, and they're not improving. That's also a good sign that you might not be eating enough food.
Mm-hmm. So it's multifactorial.
It is. Didn't I just say that today earlier?
I think that you did. We talked a lot about a lot of things today.
That's like my favorite word at the moment.
I like plethora or myriad.
Those are also good words.
Thank you. I did just write my entire dissertation. A lot of like right click thesaurus searches happened during the writing.
I like thesaurus. It's a
Oh,
good
yeah.
tool.
It's the best.
Yeah. So basically, like we always say, don't get caught up in what everyone else is doing. Do what's best for you. And don't let social media tell you that something's wrong with you if you're not super ripped with abs.
Yeah. Or your friend who follows some horrible diet. You don't need that negativity in your life. Sometimes
Right.
Kristen will tell me about all the Sour Patch Kids that she eats. Just randomly, like she'll just eat a lot of Sour Patch Kids and she'll tell me about it. And instead of being the bad friend where I say, oh, Kristen, I cannot believe you cheated on your diet, I just laugh and I say, well, I've been there. Were they good? Do you feel good? She's like, yeah, I feel fine. And then we move on with our lives.
I totally did that recently and I can't remember why, but it was when I was super overtrained and had to take a little bit of time I not time off, but my intensity was severely decreased and I'm trying to recover. And I was like, I want some candy. And I found some Sour Patch Kids in my bag. And thank God it was not the giant bag that Mary buys. It was like a tiny little bag. And I finished them off. And then I really did feel a lot better. So I clearly needed more food.
It's all these signs.
It's just usually I don't eat Sour Patch Kids like at random. I usually only eat them at the gym. But
usually those are for the gym.
I think it was like 100 grams of carbs of Sour Patch Kids.
Listen, sometimes
felt a lot better the next day.
Sometimes
and I did not gain weight. So that tells me my body really needed to use those. I wasn't eating enough food.
Nope.
Anyway, that's a whole nother topic, climbing out of the overtraining hole. That's bad.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing, which we could do a whole nother podcast on that.
Right.
So if you enjoyed this episode, thanks for listening. How awkward was that? Thank you guys so much for listening. As per usual, you guys know how we feel about cutting, and we advocate strongly of lift where you're at. But if you would like a little bit of nutrition coaching or have some questions, you can always shoot us a DM, or you can email Kristen. She has her own nutrition coaching company, Fiercely Fueled Nutrition. You can reach her at fiercelyfueled@gmail.com. She, like I said, I highly recommend her. She's my go-to for everything I need to consult. I'll just say something like in random in passing, just to like see what she says. And then whatever she says is usually like really thoughtful, and I apply it to my life, and it's changed my world. Not that this is an ad for your company, but
I feel like I'm a life coach.
yeah, I think it's about 50-50 between us.
So here's the thing. I want to clarify just really quick, because I don't want to be giving any of you the impression that if you are cutting weight or on a cut, that we judge you and that we think badly of you for doing that, because we certainly don't. There's just a lot of pressure out there, and I think a lot of unnecessary pressure out there for women to look a certain way. And so that's what we are kind of rallying against. But there's definitely a time and a place to cut weight. I would say half of the clients that I have right now are cutting weight for a specific meet or for general health purposes. And so it definitely is something that some people need to do or can do. And it just needs to be done right is the biggest thing. And it needs to be with someone who takes your health into consideration. So that's our issues with cutting. It's definitely not, we certainly don't judge you if you want to be a little bit leaner, but we are here to say you don't have to be ultra lean to be a really good athlete. So that's really it.
So if you don't use Kristen, that's fine. Just make sure you find yourself a good coach, if you want one, that looks at your health first. Health is the most important aspect of all this. We are in the health and fitness industry, whether we want to admit it or not. Capiche?
Capiche. And take care of your hands. Don't let them get all scraggly.
Or just YOLO it like me and just hope that nothing ever happens. All right, guys. We will talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye.